let's talk about the optional straps and handle fasteners. So for the strap, we're going to fold one of the pieces in half. I should say to start though, you should have your the backs of your pieces interfaced. Okay. For the strap, we're gonna fold one strap piece in half along the long side, the right sides together. And we don't need to actually use the iron, we can just finger press this. It should be nice and crisp with your interfacing, so finger pressing should do just the trick. Then we're going to open the fabric back out and lay it right sides up. We need to cut a piece of hook and loop tape that is approximately 1.5 inches long, and we want it to be both the furry and the sticky side, scratchy side. If you have hook and loop tape like what I have, it's like a newer kind, it kind of sticks to itself, so you really only have one kind of tape. But you will need 2 pieces still. So measure that to 1.5. Give it a trim. So we just need got one piece there. And now we want to center each piece of hook and loop tape on the strap, making sure we allow for seam allowances. So we're going to mark 1/4 inch in from the seam allowance along one of the long sides of the end of the strap. We're going to just mark this 1/4 inch in from the seam allowance, so that would put us at about 1/2 inch since we don't have a seam allowance yet. Or we don't have a seam yet, I should say. So let's mark it with a pen. And then we're going to place the hook and loop. This would be the scratchy part if you don't have this fancy new hook and loop tape like I have. We're gonna place the scratchy part of the hook and loop tape onto the fabric about 1.5 inches from the short raw edge. So let's measure that, 1.5 inches in. So we've got our pin marking and we've got our hook and loop tape going this way, about 1.5 inches from the short raw edge. And we want to align it so it's centered between that fold that we made and the mark that is from the step we did before. So in between this area is where we want it to go. So let's pin it down into place. And now we're going to stitch it into place with a secure little rectangle. So let's go do that now. We're stitching the hook and loop tape in a little rectangle. So just be sure to backstitch and pivot. And this will just help keep the hook and loop tape in place. Okay, so we have stitched the Velcro into place. Now we need to repeat what we just did on the opposite side. So you should have 2 opposite sides of Velcro, but everything should be the same. So make sure you do that 1/2 inch in and then 1.5 inches in and 1/4 inch up from the bottom. And have both of your Velcro pieces. Once you have done that, we're going to fold the strap in half lengthwise, and I believe we can take these pins out at this point so we don't stab ourselves. Fold it in half lengthwise with the right sides together, and then we can pin it closed along the long side. Now we're gonna stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance across the short end near the loop, and this should be the furry side if you have a furry side. So we're gonna stitch that in place, 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then along the long side. So we're keeping one end open. Let's do that now. Alrighty, we are stitching one short end here. And then we're stitching a long end. 1/4 inch seam allowance, this is. Okay, we've just stitched one short end and the long end, and now what we need to do is trim our corners down, and then we need to turn the strap through and then press. And this is going to be a tricky turn because we have the interfacing, but it'll be worth it. I don't want to bore you, so I'll come back once I've turned this strap. Okay, we've just turned our strap to the right side. Now what you should do is press this down, and if you would like to, completely optional, you may top stitch. Just run a top stitch all the way around to make it nice and crisp if you want to. Completely optional. Once you have finished this, you're going to repeat everything we just did for the second strap. So just rewatch the video if you've forgotten what we've done, and we're gonna repeat that whole thing for the other strap. All right, so I have two straps here, one with the hook and loop on that side, the other with the hook and loop on this side. So the open end should have one piece of hook and loop, the other end should have another. Okay? You can set your straps aside, grab the handle, and what we're gonna do is fold the handle in half lengthwise, the right sides together, and we're gonna pin the long bottom edge. Now we're going to stitch along this edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then we're going to turn the right sides out. Stitching the handle, 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, the next thing we're going to do is turn this strap to the right side, or this handle, sorry, I should say. We already did the straps, so we're going to turn the handle the right side. It's going to be a little tricky with the interfacing. So once you've got this turned to the right side, let's give it a good press, and then you can do an optional top stitch on it. If you want to do the optional top stitch, you would top stitch this way and that way. You could also do some additional decorative stitches. If you wanted to, you could fold the handle in half lengthwise and then stitch down the center line, or you could embroider, you could use fabric paint, you could put your family name or your child's name on the handle. Anything you want to do to kind of make this extra special, you are welcome to do. So we have sewn our handles, and now what we need to do, handles and straps I should say, now what we need to do is place the car mat right sides up like we have it, with the car park right in front of you. So let me readjust this because I know it doesn't fit in the frame. So here we've got our car park in front of us. We want to fold the side of the car mat that's without the car park over onto the car park. And actually we can remove any safety pins too if we still have a few in. The ones in the corners I am going to leave. So I'm going to fold this over the car park. So it's being folded in half long ways at this point. And then from there, the mat should be folded with the fold line running away from the car park and away down the mat. So that's what we're doing here. When we fold up the mat, we're going to roll it from the car park down the mat so the cars are stored and tucked in safely. So like, you want to have, whenever you fold this car mat, you want to have the car park with your cars in there, tucked in there. And that's the part you want to fold first. So that's the part we're gonna be folding. So we are going to roll it from this car park area down into the rest of the mat. We can start rolling it just to get an idea of how it's going to be done in the future once this whole thing is done. When we get to the other end, this is where we're going to attach the straps. This should be directly opposite from the car park, and that is exactly where we are over here. And we're going to put a pin in the car mat where the fold is on the edge. So actually I do need to like readjust here because when I was folding my stuff got a little bit off. All right. So it's squared off here better. Okay, so we want to put a pin in the car mat where the fold is on the edge that's still sticking out. So that's going to be the fold right where my hand is over here. So a clip or a pin, whatever you want to do. And then from there, we're going to unroll the car mat again, and we're going to measure in from the raw edge of the batting. So that's up here, well actually it's one of these sides, 3 inches, and then we're going to mark that with a pin. From the raw edge of the batting over on this one side, we're going to measure in 3 inches. Oh, we're right here. And we're going to mark that with a pin or a clip. So there's my clip. I'm actually going to do both. So right at 3 inches here. And I'm actually gonna go put a pin in that middle marking that we had before. Okay, once we've done that, we need to lay the straps with the raw edges. So find your raw edge, and that's matching. We're gonna match the raw edge of the strap to the outer edge, C, and the strap facing into the mat. So the strap is going to go in here. The hook and loop part should be at this end and it should be facing up. And we're going to pin this in place. So we want this strap to be centered over each pin that we've just made and lined up with the edge of the mat. So can you all see that? This is my pin. I'm centered. I've got my hook and loop tape popping up, and this is the raw edge of the strap. And now I'm going to do that again over here. Centered, raw edge poking up in towards the center. Hook and loop tape facing up as well. Okay, so we've pinned it in place. Now what we need to do is place each end of the handle. So grab your handle piece. We need to place each end of the handle next to the inside edges of each strap. And you want to align the raw edges. So if you've embroidered your strap, just keep that in mind. So we're going to align the raw edges of the handle with the edge of the fabric here, like we've done for the straps. So just kind of like center it in this area between the two straps. It's not a precise thing. I mean, if you want to be precise, you can measure it. So it's 13 inches. So right at 6.5 would be center. So it's like in here is where it would go. I'm just gonna set those scissors down to kind of hold it in place while I pin it. That's if you want perfectly centered, but it doesn't have to be perfectly centered. So I'm actually trying to figure out, yeah, I want my embroidery facing up here because this is gonna get folded in like this. And when you've got a handle, you want that popping up. So, yep, okay. So now what we're going to do, now that we have everything pinned into place, is we're going to, for the ends of the straps and the handles, we're gonna stitch really sturdy rectangles about 1 inch wide, and then with diagonal crisscross X edge. That's going to kind of reinforce everything and keep it nice and sturdy. So we're gonna do that for the straps, the handles, and this strap again. Okay, let's go do that now over at the machine. Okay, we're stitching the handles and the straps on. We're doing rectangles to reinforce the straps. So we're gonna stitch down and we're gonna back stitch. And then we're gonna pivot the machine needle. There's a lot of bulk in this, so I'm sorry if the camera gets a little funky here. Be careful if you have pins in this thing. Pivoting's going to be a little bit tricky here. All right, there we go. Pivot it a different way. Put my presser foot down and we're going to continue after that crazy pivot. Sew about 1 inch up. And then you're going to sew over again. Okay, and then you're going to stitch back, down. Okay, and then when you get to the corner, you want to pivot again. And you're going to sew a diagonal across from corner to corner here. Okay, and then back stitch. And then pivot again, and I would say sew down. And then you're going to sew diagonally across the other corner to corner that you haven't sewn yet. Okay. Wonderful. So, if you can see this area, it's so hard to see because the fabric is black, but just follow my finger. I've stitched across the diagonal and I've stitched in a rectangle. Okay? So repeat that process. Don't stab yourself for the other handle and strap pieces.